Welcome back to Starting with IEP. I'm excited. This is episode number 8 with Randi. Super excited because in this podcast, we are turning understanding into empowerment one story at a time. I'm your host, Flor De Amelia Hoffman, and in today's episode, this one is for every parent standing on the edge of a new chapter when your child is getting ready to move from high school to adulthood. My guest, Randi, an executive function coach and a parent advocate who helps college students and adults with ADHD and learning differences build structure, confidence, and independence. And in this episode, Randi opens up about her own journey with her son from early days of navigating speech therapy and IEPs to preparing him for college and life skills beyond the classroom. But before we start, I have to share her website. It is so great, the resource. I just want to make sure that you guys are set up for success. Give me 1 second for me to share my screen. This is her website, Coaching for Intent. This is her home. This is more about her and ADHD life coaching. She has an About ADHD page. Here's her coaching services. So it's over here says gap year, young adults, college students, adult, parent coaching. She has her forms here for you guys. And then she has a contact me information. So if you guys want to know more, please reach out to her. Definitely such a good resource for you guys to have as you guys are going through that phase in your life as parents. How exciting. But also, if you are a young adult and you're listening to this episode, you guys can also reach out to her. And then you guys, if you would like, you can share this with your parents and just see if this is something that you guys would like to do. And if you're needing more support at your schools or just needing more additional information or resources, or if you feel that college is not supporting you the way that it should be, she definitely has the answers for you to have. But yes, so please reach out to her so that way you guys can get more information about what is life coaching. So let's get back and share more information. This episode, we talk about how to empower your child to advocate for themselves, the role of working memory, and why understanding how they learn is the key to their success. So if you haven't followed yet, please don't forget to follow, subscribe, please share with a friend, especially if they're going through the same exact thing, or if you know of another family member, please share, comment, let us know. And if you also want to be part of this journey and share your story so other families can learn and be guided by it, please let us know so then we can interview you. But I'm excited to start and share this episode with you guys. Stay tuned. Hi, Randi. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Just so we can get to know you a little bit, I was wondering if you can just tell us more of your background. How did you get where you're currently at? And then also, what motivates you? Why are you helping our community?
Okay. So I graduated from Maryland a long time ago, 1991. And I was actually with a corporation within sales for over 30 years. So I did that for many years. In 2008, I stopped within the corporate world, and because my son was 2 years old and I stayed home with him. He was diagnosed pretty early on with ADHD by the time he was 5, but even when he was 2, I knew there were some gaps and differences that were going on. I really kind of got into action right away of an IEP, believe it or not, when he was 4 years old, to try and get him assessed through the county. Which
So the
I
county
did.
didn't tell you. You were the one that inquired it.
Yes. I mean, I think that the best thing is that when they are at preschool, you're able, and especially if it's your first child, you're looking around going, this looks different. This is presenting itself differently, his behaviors. And he was always very loving, eye contact, knew all his numbers and shapes and letters and books by the time he was like 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed that there was some language differences that were going on.
What did your pediatrician say about that when he did his checkups?
So I was looking at that, a lot of new moms that 0 to 5 years old of milestones and checking what he's supposed to be doing. And I was fortunate that the pediatrician at the time was, you actually are entitled to infants and toddlers, which is what our taxes pay for. So I registered to get him help with it through infants and toddlers for speech and language and actually occupational therapy. So I did both. I wanted to get in right away. I have to say, I give my sister props because her son, who's now married and he's an engineer at Red Hat and uber smart, had some learning differences when he was young. And when I shared it with my sister, this was a good guide for me to just get in right away.
Yeah.
Everything is early, early, early. So I stopped working, and my job became working with Ben, with his speech therapist and his occupational therapist, and just got involved right away. And so I think that I remember my one of the pediatrician, because it was confusing because Ben laughed and smiled and was loving and warm, but still there was some uneven skill set. Because they get so much early intervention, sometimes they become diagnostically homeless. He said to me, sometimes they become diagnostically homeless. And I said, what does that mean? He says, meaning that we can't really pin it on one diagnosis because he had so much early intervention of speech and language and OT that it didn't fit the bill. He's PDD-NOS, which is not even a thing anymore, or on the spectrum. They didn't have anything because he was high functioning. So it was confusing to educators and even therapists. No one knows your child more than you. No one. So at that point, my full-time job was Benjamin and getting him up and running. So fast forward, he made beautiful progress. He was in a preschool, and then I did add a year of kindergarten. So I remember my sister saying to me, people regret that they don't, not that they do, add a year. I'm going to say that again. People regret that they don't add a year rather than they do. Does that make sense when I say that?
Yes. And so I know a lot of families that they've tried to do that and they're unable to do that. So now what they do is that they put their child in a private school, for example, a Catholic school setting, and then they put them in a public school setting for public school. But they do have to tell them that they're starting another year late, but they're still getting 2 years of kindergarten. But if they were to go to public school first in kindergarten, they are unable. There's just so many parent support groups that have been shared that they just won't let them be held back. But how
Correct.
did you do it?
I did exactly what you had mentioned,
Oh,
is that I went to a private kindergarten, and I had to go to his elementary that he was zoned for. And I said, I'm going to be sending him to this private school for kindergarten. And they make you sign a document legally, kindergarten right away. So I do remember that the therapist or the guidance counselor at the time actually said to me, I'm sure parents are going to know this. At the time, the guidance counselor said to me, well, he's going to be this amount of years when he's in like third grade or fourth grade. And with all due respect, she was not a young guidance counselor. We know so much more now. And I said, okay, so what?
so was his birthday?
It's March 18th, 2006. It was, people regret that they don't, not
Yes.
that they do.
Yeah.
I was very comfortable with my decision.
I'm
Very.
glad.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Yeah, he gets a whole year of additional, especially because in kindergarten, what do you work on? You work on social skills in kindergarten. So I'm glad that you felt like you took that mommy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
understood.
I understood right away. I was like, I'm not, this is what we're doing. So with parents, you just have to hold your ground. You have to hold your ground. So that was that. Then went to elementary school, and it was in fourth grade where you start to see, and I'm sure parents experience this, where when you have an ADD kid, or even on the spectrum with ADD has a coexisting, they're typically very bright. They're typically very bright. And Benjamin was no different, exceptionally bright. He was crushing all his grades, but I could still see that there was some unevenness. And the big thing is in that fourth grade, you start to see the social gap. Between third and fourth grade, you start to see the social gap. And at that point, I'm like, okay, this isn't working anymore.
What did you see like in those social gaps so that way the families they can see those red
Well,
flags?
at the beginning, when they're in kindergarten, first and second grade, all the kids get invited to the birthday parties. Everybody gets an invitation in their backpack. By the third grade, it starts to distance. Kids find maybe a couple their little groups,
Hmm.
or they start to notice your child is different, right? And they don't have the maturity to not be mean or not to exclude. But as a parent, you are now observing that your child's not being invited to certain birthday parties. And so that's heartbreaking. It's
Yeah.
heartbreaking. So I think that I had a lot of friends who had children Ben's age. I was able to create social environments for him
That we're
based on,
safe.
yes, and based on my friends' kids. So he was still having that interaction, but not on a daily basis, like in a school setting.
I love
So
that you created a safe place with that. And I'm so thankful that you had friends that had their kids also the same age.
yes, and if you have the parents that are your friends, and they're going to pay attention to how their child is behaving around your child. So that went on for a long time, but around fourth and fifth grade, I knew that he needed to be, and this was a very strong IEP group. I want to make that clear. They were incredible. Ben only had 15 kids in his class. That was at a public school. Um, they were incredible. They were supportive. Um, I had him in occupational therapy every Wednesday, private, that I would take him to. Because a lot of times speech and language and OT go hand in hand.
Can you share how they go hand in hand?
Um, After I had used infants and toddlers for a little while, I noticed that he was not moving fast enough, unfortunately. Um, so I did put it with a private speech and language, and then also occupational therapy.
Mhm.
But it was covered by my insurance. You have to submit it. A lot of times is people don't submit, but if you can be diligent about it and keep yourself organized the best that you can, you will get reimbursed of at least a portion of it. So I would say that the speech and language and OT go hand in hand, because if the child learns to become emotionally regulated through proprioceptive and vestibular, then they're able to learn and process information new that's being presented to them. So that's why that idea of going hand in hand.
Did you bring them to your IEPs, the private OT and speech?
Did I
Or
bring my speech and language therapist did come to one of my IEP meetings to make sure, and actually, I don't think that the OT did, but they had copious notes. That you also wanted to make sure that the communication, the dialogue was open between the OT and the speech and language therapist. You have to be the leader of it though, as the parent. You
Mhm.
know, you kind of have to like make sure that they're doing this.
Yes, I think that is actually great advice because sometimes if you leave them to do it, they're all just so busy. But if you connect them and CC them in an email, and then you can be like, "Oh, I didn't see that you responded," just in case you didn't.
That's right. It's all about kindness and respect for these people.
They're busy.
They're busy, but at the end of the day, it's your job to advocate and navigate for your child. So when they were two together, the speech and language and the OT, then Lori Sova was the speech and language, and she was incredible. She had come in and she was very experienced with IEP meetings. Um, so that felt good for me to have her there. Although I would have to say right now, we have so much more information. We know so much more than, because Ben's 19 now. But when he was younger, we didn't have AI. I mean, we had Google, but we didn't use it as much as we use it now. Um, so the IEPs can be confusing, right?
Mhm.
All they do is give you all these copies and you just have so much. But I think the one thing that Lori told me and taught me was to pay attention to the goals.
This is your speech pathologist.
Yeah, at the time. Yeah, for Benjamin. And she really was like, I want you to pay attention to the goals. And through these IEP meetings, they have to understand if they're meeting their goals, are they exceeding their goals? That's what one of the things that she had taught me.
Can you share that what IEP goals do you wish that they would have added onto his IEP, or things that you wish, if you can just rewind time, what do you wish that they could have focused more before this
Social,
adulthood come?
social groups.
With the IEP that he had, there was just more one-to-one speech and not so much focus on group speech settings.
It was not. I remember even Ben saying to me, because his vocabulary was off the charts. I mean, even when he had his psych eval when he was
Mhm.
5, and then again in 3rd grade, it was off the charts. You have to really listen to your kids. So when Ben would get pulled out, or a push in or a pull out or whatever they kind of
Yeah.
do, Ben would say to me, I know how, I know language, I know how to speak. I have a very good vocabulary. And so I was like, I know, I understand that. And also, when you're working with an individual speech and language, if it's part of social, where they're trying to teach them pragmatic language, it does not transfer unless they're in a group.
Can you elaborate on pragmatic language for our audience that are not there
Okay.
yet for their speech?
Okay. So pragmatic language is basically how they chit chat, talking, speaking socially, paying attention to social cues. And so instead of them just showing them the pictures of this is sad, this is angry, this is
Mhm.
mad, this is confused, right? Okay, they can see that, they want to do that. But really, of them picking topics, or um, allowing them to interact with other kids socially, right? To be able to talk about the Orioles or the Ravens or whatever the child is interested in, whether it's a video game or anything that's going on if they're interested in, that it becomes something that they can converse with. That was a very big level of frustration for me. And I would say it doesn't transfer. This has to be able to be literally used in a real life setting. And the more that they do it, the more that they feel comfortable picking up the
Doing it.
phone, or as they grow, texting each other. But if they don't learn, how do they learn? That gap gets greater.
Was Ben part of his IEP meetings?
No,
Is it
no,
because they never invited him?
they did not invite him.
Um,
Mm-mm. No,
yeah,
no.
I often have to remind parents, make sure that they can go. And they're like, oh, I didn't know they can. I'm like, yes. And then we should review it before their IEP, the goals. Do you want
I
this accommodation? What other accommodations would you like?
I think that that's so wise and so much more of a now thing. I honestly don't even think it was even accessible to us when we were younger, when he was younger. It could have been, right? But you're, as a parent, you're just in like survival mode of just making sure that while he's there, they have everything accessible that he needs to be successful learning.
This actually does tie in what we were talking about earlier before, but remember we were talking about advocating for accommodations and things that need to be modified. So if they start advocating for themselves within the meeting, we're in a way priming them when they are going to be doing it, when they go to the disability office, which I was wondering if you can please share more information about that.
So for college, you
Yes.
mean?
Yes, because we're
Okay.
trying to get them prepared.
Okay, yes, that's all part of it. I did make sure that, just on a side note, I made sure Ben was aware of his accommodations. You have to let them know that you get time and a half. You have to let them know to break up the questions and not to give you 15 on a page. So to give him some empowerment to say, oh, no, no, I'm allowed this. I'm supposed to get this. There was a lot of pre-teaching while we were home together in the car, just to be able to prepare him. I love the idea of them being part of an IEP. People think just because they're little, they don't understand what's going on. We both know that's not correct. You certainly could bring them in at the end of a very long, drawn out IEP meetings and just say, okay, this is what we've come up with. Benton, can you think of anything else that you think would help you?
Oh, I love that. My daughter is minimally speaking. It's funny because sometimes I've noticed that people say she's nonverbal because she has a device, but she can tell me yes, no. And then she has these amazing phrases that she can always like, wow. But I have her come in the first 5 minutes of the session, the last one that I did. I would ask her a lot of questions because a lot of my main concerns were about speech and the speech goals. And then that way, in the beginning of the IEP meeting, when I'm gonna be suggesting things, be like, did you guys see what just happened when I was asking her questions? So, but I really do like what you just suggested at the end because then you guys all brainstormed and then we can ask them. I know sometimes it can be harder to take them out of class twice, but I guess it just depends on where the participant, because sometimes if I say child, they're not child, they're young adults, but yes.
And the idea is if you met one, you met one. They're all different.
Exactly.
And you
Yes,
cannot cookie cutter these amazing
exactly.
humans. You just can't.
Hmm.
Because you just don't know what's possible. They will surprise you. Benjamin was language delayed. And I definitely think that getting him in speech therapy right away, um, with OT, they're so pliable
Crucial.
and crucial. I will never forget because he really wasn't saying no. He had all these words, like 60 words they made me write out, but no was not one of them. I remember the speech therapist, Lori, putting him on a exercise ball.
Hmm.
It's probably two. And she would have him lay back on it and then she would roll him back. And she would say, are you enjoying this? Do you want me to stop? And then finally he's like, no. And I was like, oh, and it hasn't stopped since. It hasn't stopped since. Nope, no, that's the OT, right? That's that hand in hand. A speech therapist, a good SPLA will incorporate that
Hmm.
of that tactile, proprioceptive learning. Okay, then your
Yeah.
question was about
Oh,
the disability
that's
office. Yes,
yes,
okay.
because remember we were talking about like accommodations and
Mhm.
how they get used to advocating for those accommodations. Basically, we're preparing them for college. So I know that you help a lot of college students. So I was wondering, can you please, with your expertise in this, can you please help us? Because parents that have high schoolers, they may not know about the disability office and what is allowed and what isn't allowed.
Okay. Every university has a disability office. Every university does.
Mhm.
Whether it's a community college or a private or a public college, they all have a disability office. The main thing with your accommodations and the value of these individuals really understanding their IEP and their accommodations in high school, even in middle school or high school, really understanding them is that they are now going to be able to utilize these at the university. But the University Disability Office does not permit a parent to submit an IEP or a psych ed eval. It has to come from the student. It has to come from the student. They literally will not respond to a parent who does this.
Randy, I was wondering if maybe you can give advice to families because a lot of them, I think a lot of parents that I know currently, they're just really struggling to get the student to submit this because a lot of them are afraid. They were like, well, I don't want to be in a self-contained classroom. Finally, I'm in this type of setting, or I don't want to be in a team talk class and I don't want people to know that I have an IEP. They see this submission, like of these documents, as everyone's going to know that I have a disability. They really think that they're going to be treated differently, so they don't want to do this or hand this in. So when would you encourage them to start practicing an acknowledgement about this? Because I think a lot of it is just being a little bit embarrassed.
So are you asking me at what point in high school to have them talk about it or?
That and how do you get them to submit this? We know it would help them. It
So
would.
I think that the more that they become used to it in high school, that time and a half, right? Them understanding and learning about their superpower. It's a superpower, ADD. I always say nothing extraordinary came from an ordinary brain. Nothing. Can you think of anything extraordinary that came from an ordinary brain? Celebrating their uniqueness, their unique wiring. I guarantee that any of these kids that are in high school, that it's either math and science that they excel at, or it's writing. It's typically a split where they don't have a problem with numbers because it's very concrete, and science because it's very factual. Writing for a lot of these individuals is very challenging. What this provides them is just a leg up. It allows them to be on an even playing field. So if they are in a situation where they have been diagnosed with ADD by their pediatrician through a test or whatever it may be, is to be able to go to a separate room and do their testing so they're not distracted. So ultimately their scores are better and ultimately they get into the university of their choice. Does that make sense when I say that?
Yes, yes, yes.
It really is letting these individuals know that it's just something that they have, ADD. It's not who they are.
How young was Ben when you and him started talking about his diagnosis?
5.
So he would understand as he's getting older about it.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know if there's a stigma with ADD. Is there still?
I want to say the teenagers that I'm having right now, it depends on, I guess there's different types of ADHD, right?
Right.
But I think any disability to an extent can be very embarrassing for a student because I know one in particular, he doesn't see it as a superpower. He sees it as more of a label that he didn't ask for. He prefers to be more seen as the kid that likes to do sports. But when he gets something wrong or when he gets in trouble, kids are talking about his ADHD.
Yeah, I understand. It's a journey and them understanding, coming to realizations and self-awareness. But sometimes it's helpful. I remember when Ben was younger, I showed him all of the celebrities that had ADD.
Mm.
Like you can literally Google, celebrities and athletes who have ADD.
Yes, I actually did that once, but with autism, and they were just so amazed. They're like, Elon Musk? Wait, you know how much money he makes? They're telling me, and then they're looking online. They were like, well, if he can do it, he has diagnosis, and then maybe I can also. So that was great to just have a role model.
So that is something that if this young man that you're working with is in sports, I'm pretty sure that Michael Jordan had ADD. And that his father used to have to pick him up out of school when he was like 7 years old constantly, which I think you're in second grade then, because he wasn't behaving. He wasn't
Oh,
behaving.
I
I'm
didn't
pretty
know
sure. I
that.
think he made a decision. If we're not going to stay in school, we have to figure out ways to channel the energy that he had. And that's when they got him on the basketball court. If the individual that you're speaking of is in sports, you can talk about how he feels emotionally regulated at the end of practice or at the end of a game. If they understand what ADD is, then they may be able to become more comfortable with saying, yes, this is how I learn.
I
This is
think
how
that
I
actually
learn.
works with all diagnoses. We just have to, and it just depends. I want to say like also on with the parents, but I think it's better for us to explain it to them than from them learning from their peers, and most likely their peers get it all
Yeah,
wrong.
of course they do. They don't understand it, but they think that when they understand, it's really whatever they are authentically interested in. So if this individual is interested in sports, he can probably remember plays. He can remember to bring his cleats and his uniform and his water bottle and his whatever to practice. His executive functions are
Mhm.
operating in concert because he's authentically interested in it.
Authentically interested. Yes, that's the key word right there.
If
Yes,
he's interested in it,
it'll work faster.
all cylinders are running. It's when they're bored. It's when they're bored, I call it, or confused. So if he is good at math, but then it comes to writing a paper and he doesn't understand what are they asking? When do they want me to do this? How do they want me to do this? It becomes a shutdown. If they're authentically interested, pay attention to that. They start to understand that when I'm interested, I'm humming along. When I'm bored, if I'm confused, if this feels like a blob to me, like what, where, how, what, shut down.
Yeah. I love how you identified that. That was really good.
And I share that with a lot of my college kids and adults. I work with a lot of adults. And so when they really understand what's getting in their way, and then be able to have these tools, external tools and strategies that help support them, then they can make things happen that they don't feel like doing.
So what ages when you say adults, can you tell me more about what ages? Because I know a diagnosis just doesn't go away.
No. I mean, I
No.
work with gap year individuals. I have a lot of luck with gap year kids, college kids, a lot of college kids all over the country. Doesn't matter whether in Maryland, DC, Pennsylvania, or Denver University. They can be on the West Coast. It makes no difference. I can certainly connect with them on a weekly basis.
And then,
Adults, yeah, I have kids, they're in their 60s, 40s, 50s, 60s.
oh, I love that. You're keeping them
Mhm.
all organizing, and I'm assuming you're helping a lot. It sounds like a lot of problem solving, or can you tell me more about how you best serve them?
I find out what their biggest frustration, what their most pressing frustration that they're experiencing in their life, where it's getting in the way, right? When it's getting in the way for an adult. Um, and then I give them a simple questionnaire. What would you want to help to make your life better? I wish that I could be able to organize. I wish I would be able to prioritize. I don't understand what's important, what's not important. And when I start to be able to figure out what they really are looking to get out of it, then I partner with them. And then I help them. I'll offer some tools and strategies. I do this the same with college kids. I'm not attached to any of them. It is only what works for you.
Hmm.
That's all that matters. Because the last thing they want to hear, especially a college kid from me, is that you need to, you must.
Yes.
I said, I'm not your mother. I'm not your mother and I'm not your teacher. I'm your coach. And we're going to partner and we're going to get to you where you want to be faster.
I think parents would love that because uh, sometimes when I'm like suggesting something, it's the very same thing that someone else said, but because someone else said it, they listen more, but because mom said it, it's not
That
valid.
is an old adage. It's an old adage because they look at me and they're like, okay, this is coming from Randi. So it doesn't matter what they're doing. Um, I have worked with individuals who are trying to defend their thesis at Hopkins as graduate students. I have no idea what it is I'm looking at, but I know what they want to do. And we talk about how to do it, when to do it, what tools are going to work for them. So it won't matter whether you're ahead of a medical med star or whether you're with a big music company or if you're a lawyer or a doctor or a judge. And I have had a judge that I worked with for several years, and it's incredible.
Well, that's so great. Can I ask about some problem solving
Sure.
questions that might come up? I think with a lot of transitioning youth that are going on to college, one of their biggest things that I notice that they don't understand or they're having difficulty comprehending is they got their transcripts and then all of a sudden they don't understand how it just happened that they're getting C's and F's. They don't know how to break it down. Basically, it's the accountability part of it. That's something that they need to work on versus studying on it at the end. So, how would you get them to understand about their grades? Because a lot of the times they come out really shocked about
Right.
their grades.
Well, it's out of sight, out of mind,
Hmm.
right? So if they're not looking at them, they're looking, they do this. This is it. This is what they're looking at. So are you referring to college clients that I work with specifically?
Yes.
Okay. So when I work with college clients specifically, I try and meet with them 2 or 3 sessions before they begin their freshman year, because then I can move them through them understanding the ADHD brain, them understanding executive function skills. We work with every single client. I work with their strengths. Before we even get started, we do a VIA service set survey, which is the value in action. They're free, anyone can do them. And it actually stands for values in action. It's a 15-minute survey that they take, and it identifies their top 24 character strengths. So let's start with that. Ideally, if I'm going to take on a new client that's going to be a freshman in college, I'd like to see them like a couple times in the summer before they begin, just so some foundation. The biggest thing that I work on with college students is time management. Individuals with ADD, whether you're a child, middle school, high school, adult, doesn't matter, is time blindness.
That's a good point.
They don't feel time. They don't see it. They don't feel it.
Can you give me some examples when they're in high school, when they won't feel the time blindness?
Okay, so because of this, the phone, or if they're even looking at their laptops or their iPads, in the right corner, it says 3:39 right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
That just tells us what time it is now. It doesn't let us to feel time. This, an analog clock, allows us to see how much time has elapsed, what time it is now, and how much time we have in front of us. An analog clock allows them to start to feel and see time.
I love that.
As opposed to saying 3:40, that doesn't feel like anything to them. So between them understanding about time blindness and the lack of future thinking, you mentioned grades. So if they have a syllabi that's come and they know that there's a paper that's due October 30th, in their minds, they have all the time in the world because they don't anticipate consequences. They don't anticipate consequences of what it's going to take to get to finishing this. So we do something called planning ahead by planning backwards. I'm a big fan of the Google Calendar, whether I'm working with an adult or a gap year individual or all my kids in college, where they can actually see their week. And whatever we do, we share a screen. We share a screen during our whole session. I have all of their syllabi. They give it to me so that they know that they're supported. I'm like, I've got you.
Do you also help with communicating with the professors?
Absolutely. When I talk to them, if it's a freshman and I'm meeting them for the first time, or even someone who's in school where they become a client of mine, everything I'll share with a parent or in the individual. I said, listen, college is, I know you've heard this, it's 30% academics and 70% life skills. That's how to solve problems. So I'll say, tell me about a problem that you solved. So what happens is because we're sharing a screen, I have all their syllabi. We're planning ahead by planning backwards. We're gonna, okay, this is due then. Then we make things granular so that when they see their Google Calendar, they're only seeing, let's say for sociology, they're not seeing sociology homework. It's all color coded too. It'll say read pages 22 to 32. Well, that feels manageable. My brain likes that. My brain doesn't like sociology homework. So now we're sharing our screen. We're going through our session. I said, let's just take a look at Blackboard together or Canvas. And we'll see how are we doing. How are we doing with our assignments? It's so interesting. The thing is that, so now we're sharing the screen and I can't tell you, I got all of it in. Everything is great. I'm on top of my assignments. I go, well, let's just check because we want to hold the professors accountable too. They love this. It flips it, right? And I said to them, listen, this is a business, just like anything. And a university is a business and you are their client also. All right. So we're going to hold them accountable. Let's see. Did they grade the assignment that we turned in? And they'll look and then they see this look on their face. I turn that in. I go, okay, that's cool. Let's check. I didn't push send or I sent it to the wrong place. Okay. All right. So let's email them. And it's amazing on how from the beginning until when I continue to work with them, how fast and good they get about advocating for themselves to that professor.
Yeah.
Hello, Professor so-and-so, just wanted to let you know that I do have an example. I did finish this and blah, blah, blah. We're trying to solve a problem. Or they did turn it in and it's not showing up. Office hours. I'm a huge believer in office hours. They got to know who you are. And so there's that connection. So all of that is about time management and planning and prioritizing. And then task management.
Mm-hmm.
Where's fun? Don't see fun in here. Where are you going to have some fun? I'm meeting some buddies and we're going to play basketball. Put it in there. I'm going to yoga. Or if they're in a fraternity, whatever it may be, or part of a club. I love for children, any individuals who are on the spectrum or who have ADD, the tabletop game clubs at colleges are incredible.
The tabletops, what can you tell me about that?
They have all these clubs at universities, and one of them is called the gaming club. And so the gaming club has Dungeons and Dragons, or
Ooh, fun.
yeah, they have all these different games that these individuals are interested in. So one of the things with individuals with ADD and the social piece is that small talk is boring, right? They don't like it, it's boring. But if they can talk about something that they're interested in,
That's the unless part.
that's it. Again, authentically interested in it, then they don't have to think about it. And then the pragmatic language comes out naturally. We're back to
Yes.
pragmatic.
I remember when I was helping our high schoolers pick a school, I was like, let's to get them excited, let's check their clubs. And then that's what excites them more. And then that's how I get them more interested in like, okay, well, let me look at their application because I'm like, yeah, because they're focused on that club. But the reason why I was asking you about all of these like problem solving that you're doing is so that way we can also help families that are in high school kind of get a glimpse. Because I think a lot of the times, and I know we're all stressed out about where we're currently at, but we also need to know what is about to come.
Possible. What's possible?
Yes. And it sounds to me also maybe in the IEP, we can ask for them to teach them how to use like a Google Calendar to do more of the time management about writing emails. I've seen, especially the email part, I have seen it done because a lot of the times they're not doing well in their grades, but then it would be under the self-management goal. And then we would write emails to your teachers because it sounds like they have to email their professors when they're in college. So this is really good stuff.
It's wonderful and it's great stuff. There's one accommodation that I don't know that I'm a big proponent on in working with disability offices across the country and the different universities is a formula card and or a note card.
Can you elaborate for our audience what a formula card is?
Yeah, a memory card or a formula card is set. So when a lot of times part of the executive functions, that's a challenge is the working memory, right? So the working memory is information coming in, holding on to it, manipulating it, and then bringing it back out at a later date. It's like a two-lane highway. Jeffrey learned his algebra in the morning. That was the morning. Jeffrey was at home at night, 4 hours later, goes to do his homework. Jeffrey cannot remember what he learned in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
That's holding on to content. That's a working memory challenge. And I would say that I would really pay attention as an adult if your child is struggling with remembering information when it comes time to testing, whether it's a quiz or quizzes might be easier because it's a shorter period of time. Then it becomes a unit test and now they fail it because now you've had all this information
Mm-hmm.
and the child can't hold on to all of that content. So if they're getting a psych ed eval, I would make sure that when you are getting that done, that you really focus on testing their working memory. Testing that working memory. Everything goes through working memory on the executive functions. So a memory card is that they're just putting formulas down
Mm-hmm.
on the card because that's rote, right? That's rote learning, like algebra,
I've seen
like
it.
multiplications.
Yes.
If they are using it, if they're doing calculus or they're doing even chemistry or statistics, if they have the formulas written down, then it acts sometimes as a hook for them. And a hook is going to allow you to connect old information to new information. That's working memory. Then they're like, okay, where have I heard this before? Why does this sound familiar? Where have I seen it? But if a kid walks in with a note card, right? A formula card, which is a language-based here school in Baltimore. I know that they provide those as an accommodation,
Mm-hmm.
but it's tougher to get it in college if you don't have it documented from high school, but also you're psych ed eval has to show, because some of these are sticklers at these disability offices, if it doesn't show that you have a weaker working memory, then you will not be approved for a formula card.
I've seen it done in the schools. I was a team taught like science teacher, and a lot of my students that were permitted to have that was mostly for math with the different formulas that they had there. I remember that. And then I remember in history class, well, temporarily I was a history teacher too, that we would put a word bank that would help them list here and there. Like we asked you a question, but in the word bank, maybe it can help you remember parts of that, but it wouldn't be like give you the answer, but it would help jog your memory about where
Prompt,
it was.
prompt your working memory. Act as
Mhm.
a hook. Where have I seen this? Oh, right, that word. Yes, that's based on this time in this World War II or whatever, or this individual or this date.
That's some
Really,
really good advice, though, for them to
yeah.
really focus on these assessments whenever their triennial hits to make sure that they really focus on that working memory part of it.
The thing is that if an individual walks in and is having trouble remembering something, then now they're anxious walking into the test,
Mhm.
right? Now they're worried or feeling overwhelmed. Well, these big emotions that they walk into the testing with are what shuts down the weakest area of their executive function, working memory. So that's a disability. And so
Mhm.
when you have that disability, you should be able to have a formula card. I like formula cards with examples. Some professors are okay with that. Some professors are not. And it depends on when you're at a university. That one you typically have to get approved by either the science teacher or the calculus. They want to make sure that they're approving it, but you
Mhm.
are legally entitled to it. And I know that's what you talk to a lot about, that living, breathing document of that IEP. This is what you are legally entitled to. And that's why the disability office has to honor it.
I love that. No, thank you so much for that advice for families to really look into working memory, making sure that they're asking about it in order to make it a strong argument when they go to the disability office in order to ask for these
But
accommodations.
also, the thing is that if they get used to it in high school, like you said, if that's part of the IEP, then they will become even that more comfortable. Because the individual who we're speaking about, who's the athlete, if he's struggling in any of the areas academic wise, and one of them is maybe math, but if he has a formula card, then he's going to shine. All it takes is him doing well on a couple exams.
It builds their self-esteem.
That's part of it. That's a
Huge,
huge part of it.
huge.
That's why I'm very focused on strengths.
Hmm.
Strengths. And this is all connected to what are your strengths? Because an ADDer has a negative self bias, because they have that self judgment. So, the first thing that I ask every client, whether they're in college or my adults, my first question that we start every session is tell me something you're feeling good about. Tell me about a problem you solved. Tell me something big or little, doesn't matter, that you moved through. And
You know,
it's interesting though, because at the beginning, when I have them, they're like, I don't. And then the more they get used to that, oh, wait, I have a win. Tell me, share it with me. We have to replace these negative tracks that we have in our brain.
yes. And I think I also hear from parents. Actually working on this with my high schooler. He's going to this, it's a really hard high school. And I noticed that you got to see here. But I'm like, you could have studied more. But I think what I needed to do better at is really focus on the good things, praise him for the good parts of it. So it's funny. I do this really well with one child, but on the other one, I've noticed that I need to do this better for my other child. I have high expectation for both, but I feel like I needed that reminder, and you reminded me I need to do that for both.
Because
But
believe me, he's paying attention to that seat. He doesn't need anybody
yeah,
else to bring that up to him.
yes,
So
exactly.
even when they are telling themselves, tell me or share something that they're feeling good about, a lot of times that imposter syndrome comes in.
Hmm.
Well, it was just because the moon and the stars aligned, or it was because of this, that, and there. I go, don't throw dirt on that. Don't throw dirt on that accomplishment. What's another way that you can say that without self-judgment?
Do you do parent coaching where you help parents come up with this? Because one of the things that I do worry about is what if the parents unknowingly, right? Unknowingly, because they might be asking a lot of questions, but unknowingly they might be hurting the self-esteem of their child. So I was wondering if you do some parent coaching, give these ideas.
It's on my website, coachingforintent.com, and I do coach parents. I do help them because it's easy for us to say, oh, I noticed a C. It's human nature, but at the same time, really saying, you know what, I noticed that you made such a great effort in studying for that. And I know it's not a high interest course for you.
Mhm.
So way to go. And then I know it's not easy, right? We
Yeah,
have to train ourselves,
exactly. Train
we
ourselves.
have to train ourselves and just to lean in to what they're doing well, as opposed to what they could be doing better,
Hmm.
because that's going to build the self-confidence and build that momentum for them. Um, we have to really understand that these are interest-driven kids. And so I guarantee you that class that he got a C in, maybe it's a working memory, maybe he needs help learning how to study.
Hmm.
I do something called processing modalities with all of my clients. I'm really proud of that piece that I was trained on when I got my accreditation. And that is helping my parents and students understand how they process information, how they pay attention, sustain their attention, bring it into short-term and long-term memory. Then I'll show them all the different processing modalities of tactile, auditory, visual, conceptual, emotional. So they have to learn, and I give them some specific questions that help them reflect on what they did well in and what they enlisted naturally.
Hmm.
So I'm sure that there's kids who have to chew gum while they're learning. That's kinesthetic. That's tech. It's igniting their frontal lobe.
Yeah.
It's igniting their attention. Sometimes people have to write to learn. I'm a
Hmm.
tactile learner. Most ADDers and individuals on the spectrum have more than three. They have to see it, they have to hear it, they have to write it. Okay, great. But what is your interest 1 to 5? One. One? Okay, then what tools do we need to enlist in order for us to pay attention, sustain attention?
So I heard you say emotional, and I just have to ask you this question when you were saying your answer. I've noticed that a lot the youth that are transitioning into college, I know a lot of the parents are telling them, "Hey, it's different. It's going to get better." Because high school can be very hard. It can cause a lot of trauma. So once they get into college, I have a few that are having still difficulty with making friends, and even those that want to have a girlfriend. What advice would you give to parents as they're transitioning out of high school? What are some things that they're going to expect that you've seen a trend on, like the difficulties with friends and girlfriends? And then what do you suggest before they get there? I'm just trying to get them like
Okay, yeah,
prepped.
yeah. I love a job for these kids to get a job, whether it's at a grocery store or bussing tables or a counselor, but to be able to take direction, be around other people, build their confidence. Camps are great. Working at a grocery store, you see a lot of kids who are doing carts and cashier, and they're forced to constantly interact with strangers constantly. Well, I watched that build their confidence though. So I think that a job is something that downtime is not an ADD friend. It's not. Too much time is not a friend of these individuals. They need to be busier or volunteering of some sort. That's something that they're interested in. The other thing is I really talk to them about let's take a look at some clubs, because if they have any kind of learning differences or any neurodivergent experiences that they have, if they can find somewhere where they know that they can talk about something that they're interested in, then that makes them feel better. That makes them feel better. I think that to not just think about, there's a lot of different sororities and fraternities that are not necessarily the Greek. At RIT in Rochester, there's a whole fraternity type of thing on all cybersecurity where they meet twice a
Wow.
week,
Hmm.
right? And then at Loyola, there's a big gaming club, and it was really cute. because this is his junior year. He transferred. So sophomore was his first year at Loyola. And it's so interesting to watch how he said to me, there's 7 new people that came on to our club this year that are freshmen.
But which club was it again? I'm sorry.
This is the
Gaming club.
because they all find some sort of game that they're interested in. There's so many that you and I don't even possibly
Oh,
know.
do you know a few?
No, I know that there was one where they paint these figurines.
I don't know if I told you, but we have a nonprofit organization. It's called Ascend the Foundation, and we're looking for volunteers if he wants to lead and show that, and then it can also build his resume if he wants to do
Okay.
that. And then he can also share what he's interested because we have gamers here, but we actually have we just got our Xbox and our PlayStation because there's some kids that just want to do Nintendo Switch, but then they can't work on their social skills with another person because they're like, I only know how to play Nintendo Switch, so we're teaching them how to play different
That's
gaming systems.
wonderful. Yes. I will, the next time I'll look at his folder when we're done, because I said to him, what is the name of this thing again? Because it's a big thing. And he said, yeah, there's 3 other people that are into this. And it was interesting. He shared with me, he said, sometimes I go and I don't even play. I just sit and socialize and hang out.
That's good.
I know, but that took time.
Seven new people.
But that's, I have to say, that's what I stress the most. It's not a light switch. It's a dial. Change happens like a dial, little by little, right? Little by little. And it happens. It happens.
Can I ask how long was he in this social group? Or is he in many social groups?
No, this is it. This is it. Another one that I was working with found a sailing club. And he was sorry that he didn't find a sailing club his first semester as opposed to the second semester. Because now they don't have to think about what to say.
Mm-hmm.
They got it. That's it. They don't have to think about it. And pragmatic language is not having to think about what you want to say to somebody.
Oh, clubs are
My
important.
my son is a complete audiophile. Benjamin, he's just a complete audiophile. Anything with music, everything from reels and vinyl albums and recordings, and his music taste is from the Beatles to classical to jazz. And I think we spoke about this when you and I first met. This is what he's choosing to do. He's 19 and starting in October. He's going to a school called Sheffield, and it is an old recording studio that was built in 1996. And then kids can go in there and get their audio engineering degree and a video engineering degree, and then they have a mechanical degree. So each one is 6 months. And the cool thing is that this studio is Elton John recorded there, Billy Joel recorded there. You see platinum albums all over. But the wild thing is because it's a trade, they are directly connected and can get them jobs when they're done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that one of your questions to pay attention to. Is my kid a 4 years school kid? I don't know. Or is he trade?
So please clear up the picture for me then. When did he graduate high school? What year?
June. Ben just
June.
graduated June.
June. Can you please tell me in the months of, actually, I think they really start thinking about it right around October. Can you tell me like that senior year, how did it all go? And then how did he select? How did he find it? Was it in his IEP? That's how he found it, like through those. Okay.
No, it wasn't in his IEP. Benjamin was always interested in flying. So from the time he was 17, he started logging hours on a single engine Cessna plane. That's right, flying a plane.
Yes. Oh my goodness, we completely skipped. You need to tell us this story. I remember now. Yes, please, please, please
So
tell us
anyway,
the
so I would
story.
have to give my husband props for this. And this is, you talk about an interest-driven kids. Whatever he's interested in, my husband has fostered. He was interested in getting his deep diving certificate. Yes.
Wow.
That was a couple of years ago. And he and my husband do deep diving. And that is a situation where you have to go to a school for diving, you have to attend there, you have to take tests, and then you have to take the practicum and go into the water. And yeah, now he goes like 50 feet deep. And I was in the other room and I heard Ben ask my husband about flying a plane. And I was like, what?
How did you feel?
You know what? I have to say that my husband's like, well, we're going to explore it. We're going to look into it. And we did. And there's a airport outside of Baltimore. And so he started and then he logged a certain amount of hours and then he stopped for a little bit because he wanted to get his driver's license. And then he started back up while he was in high school. And so he wants to get his private pilot license as well. I want to say though, I think it was in 10th grade or yeah, he said to me, I don't want to go away to a 4-year school. Now I'm like, okay, well, you're still in 10th grade. How do you know? But I did at that point call my financial planner and stop funding the 529 and then just start funding a different fund because I was like, maybe he's not going to go. And he didn't. He doesn't want to. And so the child you have at home is the kid that's going to school. So if he's telling you he doesn't want to go to a 4-year school, then pay attention. Now, they don't know, but most kids know if they want to go. They definitely know if they don't. So if you see that your child is very interested in mechanics or the esthetician or skincare or anything, foster that.
I love that.
Listen to what they're telling you. You'll save a lot of fights and arguments, and then they're going to feel successful. So that's what we did. So now he's going to an audio engineering school and starting in October.
Process with that. How was the
Uh,
process? Is it similar?
it's not, and I have been through kids where, it's a very arduous process applying to schools with the Common App and the essays and when you're applying to a typical university or college. That's not what this is if they're interested in this, then they can go. Then they can go.
So the
And so
acceptance rate is 100%.
it is. You pay it,
Perfect.
you get to go. And there's kids that are like graduate and they're working on podcasts. There's kids that graduate that are working at stadium lighting, or they're working as a sound engineer in different studios, and they teach them the AI part of all of this. And that's because no matter what, it's the human that's entering the information.
He's interested in audio engineering.
Yes, so he's all music all the time, but he's very handy, like my husband, I guess. And so I can see him really being very interested in how to fix this equipment too, and understanding how it works, which just adds one more skill set to him and makes him even that much more marketable. Where they come out and they can make 85,000, 90,000, 65,000. Sometimes these kids graduate after 4 years, and they're like, now what? So I think paying attention to how your child learns and where they'll feel interested and successful.
I just think it's so amazing that both of you very much like he feels and he knows that you guys are willing to listen and help him like deep diving and then flying.
He wanted to get his motorcycle license. No, he has it.
Oh, he already has it.
He
Okay.
doesn't own a motorcycle, not on my watch at all. But Alec
But
was like, if you're interested in, then you're going to take the safety course.
Mhm.
What is the downside? You know what I mean? If your child, whether it's a female or a male, if they're interested in something, foster it,
Mhm.
celebrate it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Lean into their curiosity.
Yeah, because see where it got him? That school. What is the school called again?
Sheffield, Sheffield.
So in his senior year, no, you said 10th grade, he already knew that that's where he was interested in,
No, no, we
or
didn't. We
did
didn't
the high
know
school
that.
help?
No,
Oh,
that was another thing. It's not easy. It's not easy. You have to do your due diligence sometimes as a parent
as a
yourself.
parent.
There's college counselors at these different places, but some are good, some aren't. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's still you at this point, you're doing a lot of the advocating and navigating. Ultimately, you want them to learn of the navigating and advocating for themselves. You start to take a step back, which is not easy for parents. Any parent.
No,
No,
not, yes, it's
no,
hard because how
very
we
hard.
are.
I know.
That's our baby.
That's our baby, and you're used to being so hands-on for so long. But I think it's good that the disability offices are like, no,
I know.
you
No, it's
cannot.
good. Good for everybody.
Yeah,
Eventually, but if
it will take some
adjust.
time. Yes, yes, but I think that um they the more that they get used to their IEP accommodations in high school and in middle school, the more that they're going to become
Ready.
aware that this is just something that is how I learn.
Mm-hmm.
It's how I learn. Doesn't matter. The interesting that the one of the guys that graduated was a math major, and I love the earnesty with these kids. They're like, yeah, I'm high functioning spectrum. The ownership of that is just wonderful and so freeing, right?
Are they getting diagnosed or is it like, because like sometimes I also hear that, but they don't want to get diagnosed, but they are pretty sure that they're in the spectrum.
Um, this one was already diagnosed. This individual was already diagnosed. And it is interesting because the earlier that they are, the more, and the way that they take the parents' lead, right? They'll take the parents' lead of being open to it and proud, right?
Mhm.
All of their accomplishments, what they do well, right? So
Yeah.
he's not a cookie cutter kid. This is how amazing he is doing this. So the individual that was the math major, and now he's getting his PhD in it, um, found the math club. And the math club was his jam. And he started to make plans with these people. COVID did a number on a lot of people, but when they find a club that they feel comfortable in, it's amazing that they just shed their armor, right?
So
It's like
comfortable.
they shed their shame, they shed their anxiety because you're like me, let's just chit chat about something that we're both interested in. And then that leads to other areas that they're interested in, but they're not worried or thinking about it at the beginning
Hmm.
because they already have these common interests.
No, I love that, which leads me to one of my questions is, um, with this whole thing that you're talking about, it's basically like transition planning, right? But can you please tell us when should parents really start planning this out?
Which one?
The transition planning, like I often suggest parents, well, legally in Maryland, it's supposed to be 14. In other states, it's 16, this whole transition IEP. But I often tell parents even before that, because once the first IEP meeting hits at 16 years old in some states and 14 in Maryland, we already need to start planning, like start asking about those jobs, about their interest. But what would you,
I would say that the earlier the better. The
yes,
earlier the better, because as a parent, you start to really understand how your child learns, right? And then the more that, and then within that institution, they start to know how that child learns, whether they need to be in a distraction free testing, whether they need time and a half. Um, so I think the earlier the better, because it becomes like an empowerment as they get older. They're like, I got 30 more minutes. It flips. Do you see? As they mature from
yes,
14 to 15 to 16, they're like,
I love that.
yeah. Then they're like, they're feeling and seeing success. And
Hmm.
then so they're maturing, they're gaining confidence, they're seeing as a result of my extra time or my calculator or that I can use assistive technology. This is how I learn. So they become like not brazen, but high schoolers.
Yeah.
They'll tell the teacher, I'm not done. I got 30 more minutes.
No, I love
What?
that empowerment.
Yeah. So yes, I say the earlier the better, the more that they understand, the more that a parent understands how the kid learns. I would really pay attention to those conferences when you're there. When you are that parent conference teacher, that those ones that you don't feel like going to, but you do go to, ask them if there's something on the IEP, bring it in with you. Look at it the night before so that you can be refreshed of your child's goals. How's so-and-so doing with this? Where do you see the progress with this? You see what I'm saying? Because then they know, that you're doing such a beautiful job right now with what you're doing for a living. Like that, what you're doing is that you're then letting the teacher know as a parent, no, where is he with this? I remember it was the beginning of fourth grade. We were in an IEP meeting and I said, I knew that math and science were Ben's thing. He hated writing. Well, he had dysgraphia, and that's that brain to paper. And so, well, we don't know. Mm-hmm. Well, because he has a scribe, we don't know. Mm-hmm. So you don't know what level writing he's on. Mm-hmm. And these kids get savvy. They're very savvy. Ben would say, you can do this for me to the 8. So, you know what I mean? In essence of time, she would just write it for him. But that's a failure. So that's, if you are going to ultimately, and this is a whole nother podcast, but if you're ultimately going to seek a public-private placement where the state is funding it, then you need to make sure that you have every copy of every email and all your data. Because if they have failed the student to meet those expectations, then they are responsible for paying in an academic setting that will allow this child to meet those expectations.
Yes. And then you actually brought up something that I've been talking to some of my parents about. Because sometimes they do too much prompting in the IEP. It's like just filled with so many prompts, so much support. But then I don't think maybe the future of them going to college may not be really depending on, I know, depending on each kid or just depending on like, hey, I'm really trying to get them to be as independent as possible. But one of them, for example, was like to write an essay, but in like within the goal to write an essay, it would be like they would have like a word bank or they would have pre-filled sentences. So using those pre-filled sentences with like some blanks on it, yes, of course, they can make a paragraph out of that. But for example, he is taking like calculus, but the writing portion of it was really hard. So I'm like suggesting, how about let's take this prompt and then they'll be like, well, without those prompts, he's not going to pass. I'm like, but he's not going to have those prompts in college. He's definitely going to go to college, but with all those prompts, he's not going to get there. So I just worry about those post high school experience. Like you lift them up with all these supports. They feel really good, which is really important for the kids to have that high self-esteem. But the reality is college. So what would you advise for those parents that have too over prompting from the school? Because you're trying to get them to really focus, on the post high school experience.
I think that you have to take a look at what you're looking to really gauge on where the deficit is, right? Where is the deficit? So we can't see where the deficit really is coming if we're doing a word bank or we're just filling in the blanks to be able to shift to, I don't want this to be part of it. I want it to be a rubric. It's a fill in the blank. I would like to transition this to a rubric and see how he does. Because a rubric is used in college, right?
Yes, thank you. I love that. That was great.
Yeah, I would advocate if I was a parent, if I really wanted to see, I know that my child struggles with writing. Remember I told you, a lot of times they're great at math and science. And it's also for the kid, it's important for them to understand that my nephew is 27, 28, and he's working at a big company in Denver. And to this day, for him, he'll say, Aunt Randi, writing for me is still very painful. The good news is that there's ChatGPT and
Mhm.
there's AI, right? Like
Mhm.
ultimately, these tools do help these kids move through it, but they also can't go in and AI and ChatGPT because now there's flags, right? That
Mhm.
will against college
Yeah.
essays. And now more, I've been through the last 5 years where I've seen it go, they had no clue that the kids were using it, to now it's on the syllabi that if they detect it, that you'll fail, right?
Mhm.
So that ultimately they're going to go to college and they're only going to have to take one English class, right? Literally, you're only going to have to take one, maybe, or one math, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's still about you being able to identify where this child really is struggling. So if you're saying, I don't want to fill in the blank, I want you to use a rubric and let's see how he does. And maybe I need to hire a writing tutor. Maybe I need to do that.
And they
And
have that in college. They have tutors that are
oh
available
my God,
for them.
yes, I am a huge proponent with writing tutors. I'm like, let's take a look at their schedule. Let's see your Google, where you have time to go to this. And then they start, see, that's problem solving. That's
Mhm.
problem solving. So it's not doing them any favors of the fill in the blank.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, and it sucks, but I think I remember asking, well, what writing level is he on?
Mhm.
And what the
Check the
thing is
baseline.
a writing tutor, even if they're in high school, can help them understand how to mechanically, right? Because if they're ADD and they're very more like math driven or technical driven, if they do a rubric and then explain to them how to fill it in on a mechanical level, does that make sense? Like where they're
Yeah.
shifting, then the kid can get through it. It's how they learn, it's how they process it. You give a kid a blank space for like probably history, they could do better. If they did trying to do a narrative, it's a nightmare for them. It's too big, it's too broad. What? I can't
Mhm.
think of anything. If they're like, all that I would say is really important.
I'll ask you two more questions. Is that
Okay,
okay?
sure, sure, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, I guess one of the questions that I hope I can ask you is about this whole loss of structure after high school. What are some advice that you have for navigating to transition to off to college?
I would say a Google Calendar. If you could start to add that to an IEP, that'd be huge. It would be huge for these kids, for them to be able to see their week and see their day, and then like where they enter sports and where they enter, whatever it may be. But it's so much time between when they've been accepted to the university till the time that they graduate. And now they have 3 months to get a job. They got to get a job. They have to
Mhm.
be some sort of productivity, right? If they're getting a job or volunteering, they still need to be able to have to see their week. They have to be able to still see their time. Because if they're not, and whether that's going to the gym or they will do nothing
Mhm.
if they have nothing to do. So I would say that a kid that's graduating, I would start in April looking for jobs for that summer. March, April, because the kids come home from college and they want to get jobs. And then the restaurants fill up or the camps fill up. So I would say that as a parent, I would be proactive. It's okay for you to help them at that point. It's okay. They are ultimately going to be on their own, but you do not want them in your house all summer. So if they at all. So there's a reason why they're supposed to go to college. They're supposed to go. So if they have their Google Calendar
Great
and
advice
if they're already starting to use it in high school, then they can say, oh yeah, if they have any therapy appointments,
for
if
them
they're
to put it all in there. Yes. So they
it's
can
all
start being more
it's
independent.
that. Mhm.
Love that. And then I have to ask, what are you up to now? Can you please tell us like on the projects that you're currently working on?
Um, I would say that I'm still very I'm a life learner. So I constantly am watching webinars and YouTube, and I pay attention to other people on what they're doing. I think that sometimes the best ideas are from other people, right? Um, so I'm constantly just learning and relearning and bringing in new ideas and focusing on my clients. I was not looking to get big for bigness sake. I'd rather have the time. Like, so when I meet with my clients an hour a week, I'll say it's not therapy. I don't prescribe or diagnose. And so if I do find there's the therapy is being thrown in there, I back out.
Mhm.
I love the idea if they're with a therapist for us to sign a release so that I can have in communication with them. So then I'll have some redundancy. I think that I meet with them once a week, but my feeling is that it doesn't end up like that's our time. If they need to support them during the week for something specific, I will. If that means them, Randy, can you give me a reminder? Can we do a 10-minute FaceTime? That includes all my emails and the parents, which I recap them after every session,
Oh, that's
which is,
so,
which is a lot more than therapists do. So I recap them, and that makes the parents feel like,
yeah.
okay. And then also my students, my clients, whether they're adults, right, or college kids, they feel like that they're continually feeling supported. So that's what I do.
You're like another parent, but
I'm
well,
not a parent. I'm not their
no,
mom.
no, I know, but I feel like it's family. I guess the support that you're describing, it's like I want to say for example, I'm close to my mom, but if I need more advice, I would have my godmother, and then my godmother would kind of break it down for my mom. So I don't know, when you were explaining that, it seems like you have such a strong relationship with each of your clients. It seems like it's so genuine. That's what it sounds like to me. That's what I'm saying. Even though
Well,
I know
that's
you're not the
nice.
parent, but it
No,
seems,
but you know what? They know that I do care about them
yeah, that's
deeply.
what it sounds
And I
like.
do. I care about them deeply. They know that I'm there to support them. I also sometimes I'm not buying what they're selling me. So I'm like,
You're honest.
no, 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 come on. So, and the only thing I really ask for them is like a growth mindset, right? And honesty. And so if they are, I think that they feel relieved when they meet me first that I'm not attached to any strategy, that it doesn't matter, it's only whatever works for them. That's very relieving for them. You know,
Yes.
like, okay, she's not going to tell me what to do.
Yes. I think another reason why I felt automatically close to you from our first phone call is just that you just understood, especially in the beginning journey of just all that emotional I call it trauma, emotional trauma in the beginning of the IEPs, like just all of that. Like I just loved how you understood like how parents feel with all that stress. So I felt really comfortable coming out to you and just asking you questions. I think it's just really important when they find a provider, like someone that's going to help them with certain things, connection. Like
Yes.
to some degree, because like you can definitely be in a lot of the parents' shoes because you're like, yes, I do know about IEPs. Yes, I do understand about the decision making in college versus trade school. You do have that.
And
So
also, I do also know about phone calls that have come from school. You know what
the
I mean? Well, when they're in elementary school and the parent gets a call from the teacher or the office about their
Mhm.
child. And I know that feeling. And a parent, their stomach sinks, their heart sinks. You know what I mean? You know, your child's not listening, or he's eloping, or he's going out of the building, or, you know what I mean? Like it's, no one knows it unless you've been in it.
Mhm.
And so I feel like I wear my badges with pride because I understand. Um, I
To a
understand the
different
world,
degree.
of course.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you shared with me when we first spoke, Randy, update and tell people what Ben's doing now,
Yes.
right? And he is this incredibly, oh, also, he's an avid skier. He has his boating license, he's got his wave running license.
But he missed out on all
I
that.
mean, he's all this, right? Whereas
Wow.
it's everything is what's possible. And so I would encourage every parent to don't let anyone pigeon you or your child into anything. You don't know. They don't know for sure. So you just focus on your kid and what is possible for them.
I love
You'll
how you're so
see.
positive because then all of your clients, they would have that very positive outlook in things versus people that think more about weaknesses. Let me fix your weaknesses, but you're like, no, let me shine your strengths here.
If you lean into the top, I think there was a whole thing on the VIA I was reading. Don't quote me 100%. But it was a survey that was done on the 100 corporations, and they were asking questions on how the upper management manages their employees. And 80% of the managers manage their employees by focusing on what things that need to be improved upon. 20% of the upper management, focused on what their employees are naturally strong at, what they naturally do well, what their strengths are. And so it turned out pretty obviously that 20% were the top 20 companies in the US. So it's, if you lean into someone's strengths and you cultivate that, they shine.
I love
They
that.
shine, as opposed to going, why didn't you do this?
Mm-hmm.
You need to, but that's not what I'm interested in.
I know. You just
Right?
can't. Yeah, it's just much
It's
easier to you to focus on their strengths and they'll really shine that way. I love that. I've never thought about it that way.
the top 20%. And so I always keep their character strengths that they have a copy of and I have a copy of, and not necessarily that the college kids are looking at them all the time, but I always have it. And I said, you know what? This is where your teamwork, which is one of your top 10 strengths, is really shining. This is, groups are great for you. You love group projects. And they're like, I really do love group projects. Why do you like group projects? It really feels like it shares, and I feel accountable, but in a good way. I feel like I'm not alone. All of these constant positive strengths, reinforcement, this is what will help them go to the finish line. And it's a marathon, it's not a sprint.
I love that. But Randy, can you please tell us where they can find you because you're just so amazing.
Oh, thank you. So it's so terrible that I'm not on Instagram, but I think that I finally have to do this.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Please, please, please,
Okay.
please.
But I will tell my husband, yes, I'm going to bite the bullet. I am on Facebook. So it's under Randi Schleider.
Hmm.
You'll find my whole history. And then my website, which is coachingforintent.com. Coaching, FORINTENT.com. And so I always offer complimentary consultation if someone is interested in coaching or finding out more about coaching. Always open to having a dialogue and finding out what their pressing frustration may be and how I can help and support them reach their goals faster.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so
Notice,
much.
I love the work that you're doing, and
Oh,
it's so needed. It's so needed, and I love, and I hope that we stay connected.
oh yes. Yes. We're like 40 minutes away. So maybe let's,
I would meet you.
coffee.
I would love that. I would love that. I know you're a busy girl.
No,
So,
I'll make time. You just let me know dates and then we'll make it
okay.
happen.
Be safe and be well.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank
Randy.
you. All right. Take
Thanks.
care. Bye.
So, you guys, what did you guys think about Randy's episode? I really do hope that today's conversation reminded you that transition planning isn't just about paperwork, it's about preparing our kids to believe in themselves. I want to thank Randi for sharing her story, her expertise, and showing us that independence grows when parents learn to just let go just a little and when to give our teens the tools to stand out on their own. And if you'd like to connect with Randi or learn more about her coaching, you can visit her at coachingforintent.com. I'll make sure to link this in the show notes. And if this episode inspired you, please don't forget to share with another parent or educator who's helping their child prepare for the life after high school. You can also visit startingwithiep.com, or you can follow me on social media at Instagram, LinkedIn, if you want to connect there as well. We can also share free resources, IEP templates, and upcoming workshops. Wanted to share that because every IEP is the beginning of understanding, independence starts when we trust what's possible. Well, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of Starting with IEP.